and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and decide which movie is a system of cells interlinked, within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked, with one stem. I'm your host, Grana, and I'm obviously broken because I stuffed that up so bad, but joining me today are...
My name's Conan Morton. You newer models are happy scraping the shit because you've never seen a podcasting miracle.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and I'm the best one.
You are the best one. All right, we are doing Blade Runner. Now, you might be saying, that's not a trilogy, and you would be right. It's 2 movies, and we will probably never, ever get a third, potentially. We'll talk about it, I guess, at some point. Boys, are you long-time Blade Runner fans? Luke, did you get out there in 1982 and see this in the cinema?
Yes, absolutely. No, no, I wasn't a long-time Blade Runner fan, but Blade Runner 2049 got me into Blade Runner to the point where I loved it so much when it was coming out, just the aesthetic of it and everything like that, and I'm into that cyberpunk sort of style. I was like, oh, I really should go back and watch it. I feel like when I was a kid, I'd seen it, but hadn't really properly watched it. Like my dad probably watched it because he loves Harrison Ford, as all dads do. And I went back and watched it before 2049 came out, and since then, I consider myself a Blade Runner fan. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, Blade Runner from the very first moment I can remember, I have known that it's kind of like the holy grail for all sci-fi nerds. It's really one of those. It's kind of like the Bible for movie sci-fi. I feel. It's inseparable from its legacy, and it's one of those movies that people revere, but then also people hate. Like, it's got a real love-hate relationship amongst people, but it's also sacred. And I always thought this sounded cool, like Blade Runner. What a sick name! So when I saw it, I was definitely like, oh yeah, that's a film. And my thoughts, I've got thoughts on it, but I definitely respect it, and I enjoy it. I mean, I've got the 5 dicks, 5 dicks, 5 dicks.
Man, you're way off baseline, man.
No, yeah, sorry.
You're way off baseline.
5-disc box set that's got all the editions. I think I've only watched one, but it's one of those things I'm always like, geez, I have this in case I need to study this, because it's a movie for sort of dissection and discussion. Yeah, it's a great party movie. Come out, who likes Blade Runner here? And someone will say they hate it. Someone will say it's the best movie ever made, and a few people would have never seen it.
Yeah, for me it was same sort of thing. It was always that sci-fi movie that I hadn't seen yet, that shaped so many others. And I did see it in high school at some point in my teenage years, and I remember we'll get into it, but not being that impressed by it. And I think part of that is we've called it the Seinfeld problem before, where it just influenced so much of what came after it that does the original lose its impact a little bit? Maybe. We'll get into it, I guess. But,
good question, yeah.
Well, before we do, should we do some stats?
Stats.
All right, Blade Runner, released in 1982, had a budget of $28 million, made $41 million at the worldwide box office. Blade Runner 2049, budget of $150 million, made $276 million at the worldwide box office.
Also womp.
Also
Could have been
womp.
$1 billion.
Apparently it needed to make $400 million to break even, so quite a way short of that. Critical reception, 84 for Blade Runner, 81 for Blade Runner 2049.
And my Letterboxd score says different though.
Same. No, but yeah, I don't. It's interesting because I feel like Blade Runner. We sort of just touched on it. I feel like the original one was very much like one of the original cult classics that the people that loved it. It was from DVD purchases and all that sort of stuff over the years, or VHS purchases. Sorry, back then. Obviously it made a profit at the box office.
But by Hollywood accounting standards, I'm not even sure it did.
Not to the point that they consider it worth it for the amount of stuff that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I just remember the numbers being so disappointing for 2049. And even when I watched it recently, where I was just like, man, that's right, I forgot that this bombed at the box office. I was like,
yeah,
what a tragedy.
Yeah, the first one's such a notorious bomb, right? It was kind of crucial text of the 80s and the movie that makes Ridley Scott sort of not just a one-hit wonder, but like cements him as this incredible legacy director, wasn't successful. Like people, the Metacritic score, like critics, it seems, are positive on that, but I think there's some re-reviews in there. Like I think at the time it was a bit more mixed. Obviously, people weren't coming out to see it. Like it's got all the notorious versions that were cut up, and like some of those were apparently a real mess. And the second one as well, I had such a disconnect in my mind. I'm like, yeah, that movie was huge. Everyone saw that, right? But apparently no one saw it, which just kind of shocks me. I guess it's, I've spent too long in like my own cinema world bubble where I'm like, Denis Villeneuve is a household name and everyone's seen Blade Runner. But
this came out now? This came out now. I feel like it does better.
I don't think it does.
Denis on the back of Dune and Ryan Gosling.
Maybe.
On the back of Barbie.
I wouldn't say like Dune is the box office smash that everybody had to see either, though, right? Like, obviously, I think it's got a better track record than Blade Runner, but it's still not. I mean, I don't know. You can't compare anything to Marvel numbers, but it's still not doing crazy numbers, and they're huge budget movies that cost so much to make.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious about Blade Runner's because obviously it's had a lot of re-releases. I'm sure it's been back to the cinema a dozen times over the years.
Every 6 months, it's doing the promo run with see a classic of the movies. Yeah,
I wonder if over time it became worth it for them. I mean, I guess it's probably part of why they greenlit a sequel, but
I would assume it would have to be profitable, like DVD sales, home sales, and then like merchandising and stuff. Like, I mean, you don't go to shops and buy like a Rick Deckard action figure.
Yeah.
But I think just like I feel like in terms of licensing terms and names and stuff, like there must be some. I feel like there would have to be some sort of deal there where like they're making money still.
There were pop vinyls of Sapper Morton.
There's no Fortnite skin,
though. No.
That's why this would make money if it came out today, because it'd be like the Blade Runner Fortnite season. And people would jump on
the Blade Runner trench coat and the Blade Runner car, like all
his pistol. His pistol's sick.
It is. Yeah, they both are.
I don't know. Like, I do feel like it would. I don't know why. I thought it would do better back then as well. But I feel like Anna de Armas is even like a bigger star now than what she was back then. I feel like this is early days before she really blew up. Like, I don't know. I feel like I see Blade Runner 2049 imagery everywhere. Like, there's the meme, that behind Griner at the moment, like that whole scene of him with the bandage on his nose. I feel like that's become like this big iconic like scene or image.
A lot of memes, yeah.
I don't know.
It is that thing, because I thought the same then. I was like, Denis was coming off the back of Sicario, which wasn't, like mind-blowing numbers, but was really successful. And then Arrival, which was a much adored sci-fi. And so I was just like, he's getting a real reputation, like a real name reputation thing. Ryan Gosling was still really big in 2017. Harrison Ford was still pretty big.
Like these were all Star Wars, like
if his resurgence, and so people were fans. Like there were commodities in this, and Anna de Armas wasn't huge, but was still pretty famous at that point. I think, right? In my mind, like it has all the ingredients, but I just think people we lose sight of the fact that I think people just generally people look at the movie and the genre and they look at it and rather than being like, oh, I love that actor, I'll see anything. Like the average person just goes Blade Runner. I haven't seen the first one, or I didn't like it, so why would I watch this?
Yeah, I think like it is a bit of an ask to ask an audience to sit through a nearly 3-hour movie that is pretty slow. It's not particularly action packed. Like it's a thinky movie, right? Like it's not even these stars like Ryan Gosling. He's not he's not hamming it up. He's not getting his shirt off. He's not pulling off great action scenes really.
No,
it's a bit of an ask, I think, to find an audience for this movie. It's almost a miracle that it got made, to be honest. Like, do you think studios appreciate a cult classic?
I think they do. I think there is you see this with award season movies. Like studios will greenlight movies that are almost guaranteed failures, but it's like this, this tiny little period drama about a family in 1860s Albania. It's like no one's going to see this, but it'll get awards and it'll make waves. And like there is a sort of a legacy there, and like there's merit in the quality. And so even if they don't make dollars, actors and directors want to work with them if they know that people are going to make like good quote unquote movies. And so it does. I think there's
about the source material sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when you say that, I think there is a real sense of art out like small, critically adored or art or cult films. I think there is a in the plan for the year. I reckon studios are like, we want some percentage of this to be that, because that looks better for us than if we just have pure success, because we'll just eventually that will end. Whereas we have a nice mix of like hits and whatever, but also that chunk of stuff that we know will attract the best talent. And I don't know which company made 2049, but like Denis goes on to make Dune, which is pretty significant movies for the years. Like I say, not making Marvel numbers, but they're kind of like the event movie of last year. And
last few years, yeah.
And so I think, if a studio proves that they'll work with him on that, and then they get rewarded with Dune and Dune 2, it's like, okay, I can see why a studio would think that's a wise investment, even if they didn't necessarily make the money back.
That's the thing. Like, in another universe, this could have been the Top Gun Maverick of bringing it back after 20-something years and it blowing it up, but it wasn't Tom Cruise.
No.
I don't know. Maybe if you have Timothée Chalamet these days in there, it go nuts with the viral TikTok crowd,
maybe,
or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. And because even like when you think of the original and you talk about it not doing great, like it was like 3 years after Alien. So you'd think like people would be hot for Ridley Scott sci-fis.
But that's it, yeah. End of the day, people are just like, they don't care about actors or directors. They just care about if the movie looks cool, or they still like, they look at posters.
Looks cool.
It does look cool.
It looks so cool.
A lot of people don't like sci-fi. I think we're in the minority. People don't like sci-fi, man.
Star Wars, man. But Star Wars is barely sci-fi.
Yeah, Star Wars is different to Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. Hard sci-fi and yeah.
All right, well, let's get into Blade Runner 1982. A Blade Runner must pursue and terminate 4 replicants who stole a ship in space and have returned to Earth to find their creator.
So Conan touched on it earlier. I just want to bring it up again because, like, as the opening scroll, the text pops up and gives you the background info of this world. Like when it ends and it's they're called Blade Runners. I get goosebumps, man. I'm like, Blade Runner is such a cool name. Like, I love that name. It's such a badass name.
Can you explain what it means? Like, what the shit is a Blade Runner?
They'll run a blade.
Is that what it means? It is one of those things. Like, I feel like you can tell someone who's just heard those words. Like, that is a sick phrase, and I added it in without any thought of what it meant. It means nothing at all, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
Although I think, actually, no, there is a. I'm just googling this now. There is a reason why it's called that in the novel. Did you guys know this was adapted from a novel?
Do androids dream of electric sheep? Which is a pretty good name for a novel.
Also a kick-ass name, yeah. But apparently it's Blade Runners were individuals smuggling medical supplies in. And so it's not even at all what they were doing, but I think they must have just taken the phrase from the book and been like...
They were like, it sounds cool. That'll be our hitmen, That's
it.
Hey,
which is neat.
Man, the world building in this movie is some of the best. So much stuff has been inspired by it since, but just this rainy, dingy future highlighted by bright neon and advertisement, chef's kiss. So good.
This is my shtick. I don't know. This aesthetic is right up my alley. Obviously, the Cyberpunk game that came out recently you cannot have that not be inspired by Blade Runner at all, sort of thing. Yeah, and it's just when people picture future society, people call it Blade Runner, basically this sort of setting, the Blade Runner setting. I love it. There's just something about it that's so appealing to me. I had this moment, when it pops up and it's in the year 2019, and I was I wish. I was we're 6 years past. What's happened, man? We've really missed the beat here, but
yeah.
I do love a movie that's predicting a future that's in the past now. It's fun. It's more fun than our boring dystopia that we got. That's for sure.
Yeah, watching these. I was just like, man, we missed out. We just got this. We've got a slow death of bad political policies when we could have had
interest rates and
and the climate's slowly changing. We just need a good old fashioned blackout where everything's dead. animals are extinct and people are made in labs. Like, it's just cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single thing that's inspired the style more than this, right? Like, I guess there's that novel. What is it? Hack Run. Oh, what's it called?
I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, like trying to find early inspirations for cyberpunk as a genre, right? And obviously Blade Runner's right up there. There's plenty of books, but like it's hard in a book. I mean, not necessarily, but like an aesthetic really comes from a movie more than a book, I think.
Yeah, it does. Because there's that definitive book. I'm trying to think what it's called. Hack Runner or Edge Runner or something.
Lord of the Rings.
No, it's... Why do I not know this book? This is really embarrassing for me. But yeah, I think this is the movie that really gives, like as you say, like the visual style, the visual palette.
Language, yeah.
Yeah. Neuromancer is the one. So Neuromancer is like the book that is kind of like, I think actually made the genre name. But then, yeah, this is definitely the one that's like, okay, here's what it looks like if you couldn't imagine or something. Like, because I was thinking like games like Fallout, 3 and 4 are both just like directly ripping this off in huge chunks. Like movies still come out. Let's say Cyberpunk's came out, and it's like, yep, this is just that thing. Like it's part of it's both part of the issue and part of the fun of watching it again. Is like it's impossible to separate this movie from the broader sort of context of it. Like I don't know about you guys, but watching it, I'm like, I can't watch this as a movie without sort of studying it and being like, I'm here to sort of watch and learn. Oh yeah, here's where that started. Here's where this comes from. Oh, here's a weird scene. That must have been why he made a different cut. Oh, here's that question that everyone's asking about why he's a replicant now because of this. Like, it's such a strange experience because it's just become part of the vernacular. Yeah, it's almost an impossible thing to enjoy. It's not like a movie I sit down and whatever. Like, I feel like watching Blade Runner. It's really a movie I'm going to study this and see why it was so infamous or why this version was bad. Which is pretty hard. It's a weird thing.
Before I watched like the original, I felt like all I knew about Blade Runner and all you'd see like in the early days of message boards and stuff like that, all this movie kept being talked about was like the conspiracy, like the theory, like is Deckard a replicant, and it sounded so fascinating that all these people debated it for years and years and years before 2049 came out, obviously.
Before that, Ridley Scott just came in and said and answered it.
Well, but the thing is, he's gone back and forth on it over the years.
I know he's a bit of a dick.
He's like to troll people. He's like, whatever mood he's in. What did he say? Did he just come out and say no?
I mean, I think the final cut is like literally him definitively saying he is a replicant, but before that saying he's not, basically.
Yeah, he gave an interview after the final cut and said yes, like, and he sort of, I don't think he's gone back on it since, but like he gave an interview with that. He's like, yes, this is it. He is a replicant. But then there's, I don't know, artist intention versus, like the whole thing's interpretation. I think you're right. I think he never had an answer. He just decided to answer it now because at the time it's definitely vague enough to never be clear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you guys think he's a replicant? We need to have this conversation at some point.
I'm always surprised how much it's been talked about over the years, how little it's sort of a point in the movies.
That's my thing with it is like it makes no difference to this movie if he is or he isn't.
Or does it make all the difference?
It doesn't. Because it really doesn't.
It totally does, because if he is, his whole thing is a lie. His whole life is a lie. It's all fake. But if he's not, he's also a monster. Like, I think it totally makes a difference. It doesn't affect the plot so much.
Yes, that's what I mean.
It does. It does totally affect like how you view the movie, I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the final cut he has to be, right? Like the unicorn thing is too on the nose.
Yeah, it does kind of spell it out. I saw this great theory where like Gaff is the guy who kind of keeps appearing with Kane. It's like Deckard is a replicant of Gaff, or like he's got Gaff's memories, and that's why he leaves all the origami things around. That's why he leaves the unicorn as like I've dreamed of a unicorn. I put my dream in your head. And that's why he always sort of hates him. That's why he's always following him around. He's kind of like making sure he's doing his job. And that's a cool idea. That kind of sells it to me.
Yeah, possibly.
I was expecting more debate. Honestly, I was expecting some really like intense
As a
down with
Blade Runner
replicant
fan,
energy.
as a Blade Runner fan, I'll admit, like, I'm somebody who hasn't actually done research and looked into it of like what the arguments for and against are for it. You know, like, yeah, I don't know. I've always been interested in it, but I don't know the differences between Final Cut and the original either. Like, I haven't looked into.
There's just like very few. Like it's a half a Wikipedia page if you actually want to go look it up. Like it's the fact that he dreams about unicorns and then somebody else knows that he dreams about unicorns, and then there's 2 instances where they say, "How do you know?" Basically, say, "How do you know you're not a replicant?" Like,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's the whole argument between. Like that's the whole thing, the whole evidence for or against.
Yeah, it is a cool thing. It's like it's this great debate that comes from the theme of the movie rather than any even really any question of the movie. Like, because I think in the original versions there's no unicorn dream. So with that, there's almost no evidence, right? It's like
That's right.
It's literally just that question. That's like, oh, what if any? Because the whole thing is like, what separates people from androids?
Yep.
It's just like, what if the guy hunting the replicants is a replicant? What a cool idea! Like, I feel like that probably just took fire and spread across message boards and groups, and I was like, well, that's a great philosophical debate.
Yep.
And then kind of became bigger than the movie ever planned it to, which is, it's kind of like it's a really cool thing that, like, that's what can happen with art and with fandoms, where they can sort of take interesting ideas and they become these incredibly deep insights into it.
Yeah.
Because I was the same, like the question of like, is he a replicant? I was just, what a cool idea. It's cool that people are having a discussion about this movie from 20 years ago. It's now 40 years ago. But like, that's cool that something that people can care about so much can still drive this debate.
Okay, so like, I watched this movie yesterday, right? I didn't see this unicorn dream.
Did you watch the final cut?
You didn't.
I did. I swear I did. I bought it. And my
He's
receipt says for the final cut.
He's in his room and he's playing his piano and he falls asleep for a second.
I literally just looked it up on YouTube, and I remember him being at the piano. I don't know if I maybe just phased out and like looked at my phone for a second and missed it, but like I kept waiting for the dream because I'd seen it online. Like, what's the differences? And it was like, oh, people said the unicorn dream. And I kept waiting for the unicorn dream, and then when you just brought it up, that's why I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I was like, he leaves a unicorn origami at the end. And I was like, that doesn't mean he's a replicant. Like, what else does he do with unicorns? And then just seeing the dream, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, 100%. I don't know how I didn't see that in the movie I watched.
Did you have a voiceover in yours? Did he narrate it?
Yeah, he did, and it felt really like I wasn't a fan of the narration.
Wait, are you joking?
No, he narrated.
The final cut doesn't have any
narration. You didn't watch the final cut? Yeah. No, you watched a different version.
You didn't watch the right version. After all that talk, when we chose this, you have to watch the final cut.
That's the big difference. Yeah, the original one has a narration, whereas the director's and final cut
has no narration?
Yeah.
No, and it's a lot more like, apparently it's a lot more like meditative, and there's a lot more like sort of ponderous scenes of sci-fi shit.
It's funny reading like the history of that narration. Harrison Ford really phoned it in because he didn't want them to use it.
It's so phoned in.
And they still used it.
It's so phoned in. I was going to ask you guys about the narration. I even Googled because I was like, oh man. I was like, did they add this narration in the final cut? I was like, because this seems really tacked on at the end. Like, he's literally like, sushi. That's what my ex-wife called me. Dead cold fish. And it literally sounds like he's in a recording booth way after. Like, it sounds so unnatural, and it kept bothering me the whole movie. I can't believe I didn't watch the final cut.
How did you not watch the final? Where did you download this from?
Prime. I bought it on Prime.
Man. Physical media wouldn't do this to you.
Look,
I used streaming and had no problem.
Amazon Prime video order of Blade Runner: The Final Cut. I bought the final cut.
Listen,
get his credit card information, everyone.
Replicant Luke over here. I'm sure you think you did what you think, but Amazon didn't do what they do.
You actually just implanted that receipt into your emails. It's not really your receipt. That's my receipt.
I'm so tripped out. I was waiting.
That's cool.
Unicorn.
I want to compare differences, but you would have no reference points.
I went and watched the whole thing on their differences afterwards. I watched it on Apple TV. It was the final cut. I can assure you of that. So.
See, Amazon has messed me up before with stuff as well, where I've bought stuff and I'm like, this isn't the right thing. Okay. Anyway, I'll get into that later. He narrates a lot.
Want you to see the final cut.
He narrates a lot, where to the point where I'm like, oh man, like this is bad exposition. Where it's like he's really just explaining. You know, like the guy will say, what do they call them, like skin bags or whatever walking around.
Yeah, it's been bad.
And then he'll do a narration where he's like, "This is what this word means. It means a replicant. Like this is his name for them." And I'm just like,
Yes,
"Oh,
it's yeah.
it's really,
So-
it's not great."
Yeah.
Griner, have you seen the original cut or any of the
Actually,
ones?
not sure what I watched years and years ago. It might have been that first director's cut that they released that I think
Yeah.
also didn't have the narration. Because I don't
No, the
remember the
director's didn't.
narration, to be honest.
Because I really want to watch the version with it because I really want to see how different they are. Because I don't know, Luke, did you find that version? Like, how did you find it? Did you find it sort of slow, boring, compelling? I don't know, confusing.
It's slow.
Hmm.
Not confused. Like, oh man, now I'm tripped out. But yeah, it's not. I don't know. It felt like it explains a lot. Like that's why I thought it was the final cut, where I was like, oh, they're adding in all this exposition for stuff that was originally vague. But I kept thinking, I was like, man, I really wish he wasn't narrating right now and like smacking me over the head with this simple stuff that's easy to understand. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, he narrates like 4 scenes while he's getting sushi at the start. Like, he's already narrated a bunch. Like, he's just constantly talking over it. It's worth watching. Like, it's $3 on Amazon Prime. It's under the final cut if you want to watch it.
I have a box set with work print and original version and like the 3 other international versions. So don't you worry.
That's the argument for physical media if I've ever seen one.
Yes, it is. Because, Griner, how do you like? What do you think of this movie?
Hot take, I don't really like this movie very much. I respect it a lot. Like, I appreciate what it's done for sci-fi. And I don't, like, part of me is like, is this just your 2024 TikTok addled brain? You don't have the attention span to sit through a quiet, long movie and think about things. And maybe that's part of it. But the other part of it is, I think, like, the plot is very straightforward. Like, could not be more straightforward.
But also such a mess. Like, I was shocked watching it. The plot is also kind of, like, the plot's really, like... So, Luke, I don't know how this is in your version, but, like, there's this scene in the middle, right, where like, Rachel just rocks up at his door.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they're, like, already really sort of close, it seems, and, like, friendly. And, like, he's, you know, she turns up with this guy who's interrogating her. Then he's, like, next scene, he's looking at a photo. Somehow he can spin it around 360 degrees and see behind walls in the photo.
Enhance, left, right.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so I don't know where he's got this from. I don't know what he's doing or how it's working. Then he has a snake scale, and then he's like, cool. And then he's just at a club where he knows the snakes. Like, you can figure it out and go, oh, yeah, these are the things. But there is a real, like, there's just steps missing it. It's like, this is, why is he just, like, floating around in his apartment playing the piano when he was just talking to Rachel? When's this picture happening?
Wait, do you see, okay, so you don't see him get the photos or the snake skin? Like,
I don't think so. Griner,
yeah, you do.
When
because he finds the skin in a bathtub in that guy's apartment.
Yes, and all the photos, because
Leon
tries to go back. He's like, "Oh, there was someone there. I didn't get my photos." And then,
do we all watch different versions?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a version that doesn't have that though, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a few extra scenes and no narration, and like they, added some gore, but that's about it. Like, I feel like the differences aren't that major. No. But you're right. Like, I was still like, oh, what has this scale got to do with anything? Like, I feel like his detective work isn't interesting in any way, really. I also feel like Deckard sucks. Like, he basically loses every fight. Like, how is he the best they've got when he basically loses every fight that he's in, and like is saved on multiple occasions, and
he rocks up like with no preparation. He's having conversation with someone he knows is a replicant, and he just gets bashed up. Where's your contingencies, dude? Have your gun ready.
Yeah,
shit, you're bad.
Like, he's no Han Solo. He's no Indy. Like, I don't know.
Opposite of Han Solo, he's kind of rapey.
There's that too.
Yeah, kind of rapey. Yeah, questionable. But replicants, like, this gets the question: is it rape if the person is an android? Are they people?
If both androids are committing it?
Sorry, semicolon. Are they even people? Like, these are the questions we have to answer, and this is kind of the.
Yeah, and that's what I do like about this movie. Like, I think it has a great sense of atmosphere. I think the questions it asks are really interesting, and I appreciate, like you say, that it, is generating conversation 40 years later. Like, that's interesting. That's cool. Love that. I still don't really ever want to watch it again.
So, this thing, as much as I say I'm a Blade Runner fan, like, I have this thought when I watch the movie. I'm like, oh, this is really cool that it was like made in '82, and I feel like it's, you know, it still looks pretty cool. I like the aesthetic of it. I like the world. Like, I want to know more about the world of the Blade Runner universe, and that's why I was so excited for 2049. As a movie in general, it's not like a great movie, like, and it doesn't
No.
have all that stuff. But I think we'll get into it when we talk about the next one. But yeah,
That's what I was saying at the top. Like, I can't separate the legacy of this from the experience. Where I'm like, even thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I should watch Blade Runner again because I just kind of want to see the cool scenery and the cool set pieces, and I kind of want to hang out in that in Sebastian's weird mansion with his bizarro talking soldiers. But whenever I watch it, I'm like, God, this just goes on forever, doesn't it?
yeah.
It's like the movie is incredibly slow. It's like it's super ponderous, and I really like the meditative nature of it. It just like spends time being like, what are these things? Are they people or are they machines? But it doesn't make for a fun experience. It's like it's a real slog to get through. So I can't be angry at people who hate this movie because I'm like, I can see why you'd be bored shitless. But for me, I'm also just like, I come away being like, I'm so bored, I don't want to watch again. Masterpiece.
But then later that night, you know, there's this whole genre of YouTube of like Blade Runner ASMR of like, I'm sitting in my desolate, rainy apartment overlooking like the distraught city sort of thing. But
yeah. So yeah, I just want to vibe with it.
it's a vibe. It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe.
It really is.
Yeah.
Tears in the Rain. That great monologue.
Banger quote. There's some great quotes, and that's
Yes.
an all-timer. That's an all-timer.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Them two are interesting as characters. She's a bit crazy. There's certain stuff I enjoy, like with Roy Batty, but yeah, I don't know. That's an all-timer quote. You can't knock it.
Yeah, Rutger Hauer's really good. Like, he's got a real presence. You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't have. It's great. I always forget how little sort of screen time any of them have, but he as well. Like, he's sort of in an opening scene. Well, not opening. He's in his first sort of scene where you go, okay, he's the leader, and you don't really see him again until the end. It's like, he doesn't have a whole lot of time, but he's like both really vulnerable, really intimidating though. Just really interesting. Like, he's an interesting presence to watch. He's got a really interesting face. It's and he carries like that whole last sort of chase through the mansion again, where it's like he's climbing through a vent and it's on the roof, and like, it just kind of goes on and on and on, and it's very confusing. It's kind of poor. It's not incredibly well shot, but it's just like you're waiting sort of until the monologue, and as soon as that comes, like it's saved.
Yeah.
I'd sit through an hour just to get to this sort of last part.
There'll be random shots. Harrison Ford's like running outside and getting away from him, and then it'll just be like Roy Batty running down a hallway towards the camera, or like doing a dance in another room or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just, but him like pulling his hand through the door, like the wall, and then like breaking his fingers and then putting it back through. Like, it is cool.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to move on to 2049?
Yes.
We're nearly there. Nearly there. Young Blade Runner K's discovery of a long-buried secret leads him to track down the former Blade Runner Rick Deckard, who has been missing for 30 years. That long-haired secret.
A long-haired Batista.
It's a woman.
What a twist! He finds Batista with there.
Grona, I want to go to you first. What was your experience with watching this for the first time? Like, when did you watch it?
I saw it in the cinema. Like, I was keen to get back in on the Blade Runner universe. And I really enjoyed it. It's a good movie. Yeah. Like, this movie is long and it's kind of slow too. Like, it doesn't stray from that formula very much. But I do think the brief moments of action that we get are better than anything we get in the original. There's a real sense of tension at moments that's really good. And just I find the whole conceit of him thinking, he has that moment where he has a reason to live because he's that miracle child, and then realizing he isn't, and that whole arc is really, really good, and I think easy to engage with in a way that worrying about whether Harrison Ford is a replicant or not doesn't do for me.
Yeah. Much better main character. Like, K is a great character.
What we are saying is sacrilege, by the way. People will come for us for saying this.
Hey,
I think
Deckard's
we
great
can take.
too.
I think we can take those nerds. I think we
But
can take
Deckard is better in 2049 than the original.
That's so true.
I love this movie. Like, I loved this movie when I watched it in the cinemas. I remember coming out of it and just being like, "Oh my god! Like, this is my new personality." Like, I was like, "I want to be like Kay. I need to order my trench coat. I just want to, sit in a dodgy apartment with it and just broken nose, be bloody up, and just miserable and sad." But I don't know, like everything in this movie, like the opening, I love Batista. Batista's great. In this, that whole showdown just between them two, it's such a small scene, but like I remember it all these years later. Like there's something about it more. It's everything from the original Blade Runner that I love so much, dialed up to 11. Like the aesthetic, the city, the rain, so much rain, but just Denis Villeneuve unleashed onto Blade Runner is like the mix for me. Like it's amazing. I love the as well just the cinematography, like the amount of.
Sorry, Luke. I think you've unplugged your mic. You're
I
sounding.
think replicant
Yeah,
Luke's malfunctioning.
you're just so far off baseline,
Yeah.
and now we can't hear you at all.
You got 4 years, and it's been 4 years.
No, we still haven't got you.
Still got it.
I might just.
So you fix that. I'll talk for a little bit.
Yes, go.
I remember. Yeah. So I remember I saw this with some old EB friends. RIP. They're not dead, but we just don't.
Friendship is.
Yeah, it's not my doing, but anyway. But that's done. We saw that, and I remember saying to you, I was excited for this movie. I went in and saw it, and I think we all just came out and were like, "Holy crap, we've witnessed a miracle!" Like Dave Bautista was talking to us when he said that. Because I was a big fan of Denis Villeneuve at that point. And it kind of lived up to all my expectations. I didn't have expectations. It's just like, okay, Denis will do good, and he did better than I thought he could. Like, it was long and it was slow, and there was only bits of action, but I was just like, you just enraptured because you're both right. Like everything about this movie is, on a mechanical sense as well as just better. Like the action is better, the story is better. Like Roger Deakins. That's kind of the two words you'd need to see if this is a better movie. It just looks better. Every single scene looks incredible. Amazing shots. Just everything's so well lit and done. Like the world is more realized. The characters are more complex and interesting. Like, is this as an important movie as the first Blade Runner? Of course,
no. Yeah,
definitely. Like, for the sake of film history and health, like obviously, it's not even a question. But is this a superior movie? I think for sure. Like, it's just better.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I've always wanted to come back to it. I hadn't come back to it since I saw it the first time because 2 hours and 45 minutes is long.
It is.
And I was always like, what if it's not as good as I remember? And I then don't like this. But yeah, and I had to split it up over 2 nights just because of time constraints. But I got to the end, I'm like, shit, yeah, what a film. Like, incredible that it can come after such a deeply philosophical movie and ask kind of different questions, but equally as valuable questions.
Yeah.
Like explore this, just find more philosophy in this idea of replicants and mind that. And like you say, Grant, the subversion of the hero's journey arc, where it's like he thinks he's the hero, but he's not. It's like, well, what does a hero even mean? Is he heroic at the end? Like, that's just really clever. And it's like he finds meaning by that. It's just, it's incredible that this works. A movie like this shouldn't work. 30 years after the original, of a very kind of I don't know, like sort of alienating movie to come to. Like nothing should have worked, but it just does. It's a miracle, this movie.
Exactly.
And yet still nobody saw it.
Unfortunately.
So tragedy. What I was going to say before I cut out and malfunctioned is the cinematography. Like there are so many shots in this that you could just be like, okay, screenshot, that's a wallpaper. Like I want that as a wallpaper. Grant has got one behind him right now. Like the opening shot of him walking out of his car, it's just like orange or blue around him, and then there's like the one later in the city where it's all orange. It's just everything looks so cool.
I just love the scene where it cuts to it's like, it's just I'm here for it. In an orange screen, and it's just 10 out of 10.
I don't care if this shot is only just to make it look cool. I'm here for it. That's the thing, and what an interesting conversation to have, and like what I think drives this movie so much better than the original is like the whole thing of a pregnant replicant, like a child born from a replicant sort of thing, and this whole thing of this corporation trying to silence that and shut it down by any means. And then really what you've got on the other side, like this nut job Jared Leto, who seems very much like a villain, but also kind of what he's wanting to do in a way is kind of like the right thing of like, well, they should be having, children. Like this is like the future of the evolution of replicants or whatever. But obviously he wants to have an army or whatever to take over the planet. And he's Jared Leto, so he's like more than time. But it's just, I don't know, like I love this movie, and I feel like this is why I like Dune so much as well. Is it's the similar thing of like Denis Villeneuve, the cinematography as well, and just this type of world. Like I don't know, something about it scratches my itch.
Yep.
Yeah, like I agree. You go.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't think I can fault a single performance here. Like, I think even Harrison Ford, who so often phones it in, doesn't seem like he cares. Like he's pretty good here, and I like that kind of suits his character anyway. He's old and crusty. Ryan Gosling's really him as like a quiet protagonist will always be entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two Ryan Goslings in the world, right? There's like the Ken of it all, and then there's like the Drive, Only God Forgives. Like, yeah, it's Ryan Gosling and Neon, kind of that version where he's just silent and he just stares. It's just it's the best. Like, it's weird to feel like he's better when he doesn't say anything or do anything, but he just, I don't know, he's just got an incredible
cool, it's cool.
Yeah, just every little micro action he does is really compelling. Like Ana de Armas is really good in this. Like,
yeah, it's hard to not like fall in love with her a bit through this movie. Like, she's just so charming and gorgeous, obviously. Yeah,
just does a great job of being like, she is like here to serve him, but it feels so authentic. Like, there's all those conversations they have where he's like, you don't have to say you love me, and she's like, but I want to. And it's like, I don't know what to feel with this. Like,
that's the thing. It's they have really good chemistry, and it's such a good thing with them, and that's what it does feel like authentic, and that's why it's such like a gut punch when that scene comes on that is behind Grind at the moment, where he's at his lowest almost, and it's just straight away like this is what this actually is,
Yeah.
And as soon as he wipes that memory, like the hard drive, back at his apartment, and he's like, it's just on this USB stick. It's like, oh no, this is going to end bad. As soon as that happens, and then it's like,
you should back things up, man.
The next scene.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, talking about performances, like even Jared Leto is good.
That was where I was going. That's where I was going. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I kind of like Jared Leto in a lot of performances. Like, him in smaller roles he's really good.
Yeah. No, we need to say this. Jared Leto is a good actor. He's
except
just a psycho
Joker.
person.
It's funny. My wife and I had
Morbius.
This whole conversation recently. Well, we haven't seen Morbius. That's not just.
That's true. Maybe he's great in that.
Like we had this whole conversation about Jared Leto, and it stemmed from 30 Seconds to Mars, because I'm a big 30 Seconds to Mars fanboy. Like, I really, really, truly am. We had this whole discussion about, like, he's actually not about, like, he's won an Oscar for, like, Best Supporting Actor. Like, he's a good actor. It's just, like, there's this, obviously, in his personal life, there's kind of this, like, God complex, like Russell Brand-esque that he seems to have.
He's a cult leader, which is the problem.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a problem. And I think really, like, Suicide Squad and Joker really damaged his reputation, because, like, that's a very cringe character, and even aesthetically, like, I haven't even watched that movie, and just seeing photos of his Joker, it just made me I almost deleted 30 Seconds to Mars songs off my phone, and I was like, man, that's hard, but I didn't.
Yeah. But, every good actor has some stinkers. He's not immune from it, but, like, I mean, you look at his earlier stuff, like, he was in Fight Club in a small role, but he's really good.
He's really good.
American Psycho, Girl Interrupted. Requiem for a Dream, he carries that movie. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's amazing in that.
And then he's in Panic Room. Like,
I will defend Panic Room to the day I die. I love that movie.
Panic Room's dope. Like, he's a great actor. It's a shame that he makes some bad choices and is clearly an absolute douchebag.
Yeah.
But, like, this kind of fits him perfectly as well, right? Because, like,
this role is super suited for him.
This pretentious, god complex, megalomaniac, sort of almost like charming villain / just I don't know, industrialist. And every time he monologues, you know, he's got that AI voice almost where he's like, "Why do we do what we do?" It's like this is fake, but I'm just so interested in it. Like his monologues are so compelling, and so he gives a really great performance in this. Like,
I read a thing that Denis was saying, like they didn't even give him a script. He just came on and started talking, and they just like, okay, this will be the character. Jared Leto showed up on set and he started talking about like his beliefs and stuff, and we just filmed him. Like, perfect, we'll make that a character.
And Denise like, I need security on set. Film this, please.
Take him away now. We've filmed our scenes. We're good. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's
take the person in the plastic bag away now. Jared Leto, please.
Yeah, that scene where he kills a person really happened. It's Jared Leto went method.
Morbid time.
He's great. He's and so. But I wanted to ask, do you guys think this movie, how does this movie hit for you guys in 2025? Because watching this again, I'm like, it's hard not to draw parallels to what you're living through. But like, there's some Muskian vibes in this guy, right? That I don't think was there in 2017, but I'm like, I don't know. It kind of felt a bit weird. Like this megalomaniac guy who's just like, we should own the stars. Oh, I know a certain megalomaniac in real life who does that.
Like, I think there's a few discussions to be had about like Musk's portrayal in Hollywood, particularly him. And not like, I know this isn't necessarily a portrayal of him, but like if you're looking back at his Iron Man cameo and just like the whole idea that Tony Stark is probably a little bit based on him movie wise. Obviously, Tony Stark predates him a lot, but yeah, I wouldn't say it hits different though. Like, I feel like we've had those figures throughout history in some ways. You know, there's people with more power than they should have.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more since this movie came out, Musk was like, oh, that's my personality.
Yeah,
now.
maybe.
Like, it's like, that's who I want to be. Neander Wallace.
Some of my favorite movies, Blade Runner 2049. Neander Wallace is my favorite character.
He's like, I want to know what happened. He's like, when are we getting a sequel? I want to know what happened to Neander Wallace. Like, we're left, you know, what happened to him?
So he's making a sequel as we speak. He's making Blade Runner happen.
Yeah, Blade Runner 2025.
Big things happening.
Yeah,
great things. Lots of people are saying it.
It is a long movie. Like, I had a moment when I was watching it where I was like, I felt like I was coming to like the end of the journey, and I was like, oh shit, Harrison Ford hasn't even shown up yet. I was like, that's right. Deckard's in this movie, so we still got a bit to go. But yeah, I really like watching them interact as well. I feel like him and Harrison Ford have really good chemistry together. Yeah, I love this movie. Love is really good as well as this like robot chick that's just going to beat everybody up and kill everyone. The way she punches that dude in the back of the neck, it's really disturbing. Yeah. He's just laying on the ground, he's just bleeding out everywhere. It's like, oh, this is uncomfortable.
Dave Dastmalchian, yeah, she's quite evil. That's a good. Speaking of Harrison Ford, it's a good use of like you know how like Lego sequels often do this, where they bring back the original characters in a way. It's like
Force Awakens.
It's like a passing of the torch, and it's often handled pretty poorly as more of like fan service or something. Like, I think this should be probably the textbook example of how to do it, because it incorporates the character in a really good way that's necessary for the narrative, necessary for the thematic underpinnings, resolves their story as well. Like,
it goes
like this is how you handle it.
It goes against the grain of what you're thinking, because I remember the whole conversation before this movie coming out was like, oh my god, like Harrison Ford's back, he's gonna die in this one, like they're gonna, you know, he's gonna die, like that's gonna be what this movie's building up to. He's like the death, and it's gonna be emotional because
and we'll see that he's a replica
character. Yeah, and then it'll be K moving forward, like in the Blade Runner franchise that we're gonna get, the BRU, but then it doesn't. K dies, you know. Harrison Ford then continues living his life and gets to meet his daughter and all that. Which even like the scenes with her, she's really great in that scene, like where she's recalling the dream. Yeah. Like she's really good in that scene. And yeah, him reacting to that, like that scene, like where she's like, oh no, these memories have been lived. Like,
yeah.
And he kicks the chair. Oh, it's so much goodness.
Yeah. Robin Wright as well. Robin Wright's really good in this. Just like nothing overly complex in the performance, but just a really solid addition. Like,
yeah,
you know, this is the job. This is what a good director does, right? They just hire the best people and they know how to get the best performances. And it's like he stacks it full of good actors who are just doing good stuff.
Yeah, Mackenzie Davis.
Really
she's as well. Like I always forget it, like the whole like the underground movement of like these people, like who she's working for and all that sort of stuff that are trying to
it
rise
does
up.
kind of like come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little convenient when it does come to play, sort of thing. Like, I don't know.
Is it necessary?
I'm not sure.
Well, you need someone to basically be like, you are not the hero.
Yeah.
The hero is someone else. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's. I feel like it's
another replicant saying they've had that same dream, like, or
could have been. Rutger Hauer could have come back and been like, "Tears in the Rain, brother," and it's like, just so much fancy.
That's it. Tears in the Rain, brother.
He's like Tears in the Rain and dies. No, like, it's a little bit out of the nowhere, but there is that scene where we see someone talk to Mackenzie Davis, just like find out the man in the green coat, find out what he knows. So you sort of know there's a conspiracy there, but again, this movie is where the first one is riffing on detective noir. This one is riffing more on like political thriller, right? And like he's the lone cop trying to uncover this conspiracy. And so I think it kind of fits in that genre of like there is a movement or like there is some sort of group undermining this conspiracy that's trying to control the world. So yes, it might come out of a little bit suddenly, but I think when it's like, oh yeah, this is a trope in that genre. So I'm like, it's fine with me. I never found it off-putting.
Mm. The baseline test with K is more entertaining than the original eye test from the original, the Voight test or whatever it is.
The Voight count.
What the hell is the baseline test? What is it doing?
Measuring his response time and how he reacts to the statements that are made. And he has
is it?
Yeah, someone on Reddit explained it very clearly to me.
Interlinked.
I like it though. Like it's a very striking moment.
You remember it.
Yeah.
You're like, when it first happens, it's like, what's going on? And it's like it keeps going over and over and over again, and then like it drills it into you, sort of thing.
I think Denis likes having that sort of stuff too. Like Dune is right up his alley as well, having all the Benny Gesserit sayings and stuff that he can just have intersect everything. Works uses effectively.
He does, yeah.
Put your hand in the box.
I was thinking about like writing that would have been so strange. Someone this dude's just like, and then he says, "Have you ever been in an institution?" So like, yeah, this is gold. It doesn't mean anything, makes no sense, but
it's a poem that he's saying, right? Like that's the whole thing. That's the words that Kay repeats is a poem. Yes.
Interlinked is a poem.
A system of cells interlinked within cells, interlinked within cells, interlinked within one stem is part of a poem. Yes.
What poem is this? Well, this is
do I need to read the whole
Jared
thing?
Leto. They just took more dialogue from him and wrote it down. They're like, all right, he started rambling on about this at one point. Within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked. And it's like, all right.
The script is like 80% just Jared Leto's bullshit.
Right, Jared Leto.
I love it. I had some questions. Why is Kay so strong? Because their replicants are just meant to be people. They're not meant to be like
but
special.
They're strong, right?
No. Like literally at the start of the first Blade Runner, it says they have heightened abilities. Basically,
it's heightened abilities. Like Roy Batty's strong,
but they don't feel pain because he gets like knives and he's just like, ugh.
But he dies.
But then he dies.
Is it like Terminator? You know, there's a series of electrical impulses sent to my brain. This could be described as pain.
They feel emotional pain.
It's a little bit dismissive of the human experience. But
no, like I think it's not that right here, right? Like I think he does feel pain, but I also think he has somewhat superhuman strength and ability to withstand pain. Now, the thing that doesn't make sense is how can Deckard, if he's not a replicant, go toe-to-toe with him in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, that's an interesting one. But it doesn't look like he's doing damage to him outside of the gunshots. Like when he's punching him, he's kind of just taking it he's back and he's like, calm down, old man.
But so then I guess he could be an old replicant, right? He's not as fast as he once was. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess, so what's the deal there? What kind of replicant is he? Why is he not dead after 4 years?
Is a replicant only as strong as their belief? Like, does Harrison Ford just believe he's an old man, so he's not that strong? If he knew he was a replicant, could he kick ass?
Only some replicants had that 4-year lifespan, right?
Because he can't break out of the shackles either. He can't break out of the shackles, and then Kay just breaks them off him.
What a
He's there
shit
drowning.
replicant Deckard must be. What is this?
Maybe he's not a
I-
replicant. We've
I have
just blown it open.
I have a theory he's a sex replicant. That's why he was made.
That's why
He
he's
doesn't need to be
rapey.
strong. He just needs to be a power bottom.
That's why he's
Yeah.
rapey. He's just like, no, tell me you love me. He's like, that's what I need.
That's why
Yes,
Rachel sees him. She's just like, oh, this is my gift from my boss. I'm going to go to his apartment. Oh,
So
that
Luke,
makes sense.
sorry, this is rolling back a bit, but the version you watched, did they drive off into the sunset at the end of the movie? Happily ever after,
Into
basically?
the mountains, yes, yeah.
Oh, that's gnarly. Yeah, that's not what happens.
Okay, so what happens in the
They
final-
basically get on the elevator and it's very somber and that ends.
Yeah. They just leave. It's just
See-
them leaving the apartment.
I've seen then that. So that's the final cut, right? What you guys watched.
Yeah.
I watched that years ago because I remember watching this last night where I was like, wait a minute, what's this scene of them like driving? And it's like playing like happy music as well. It's like, oh, he moves and retires in California.
And they retcon the whole 4-year thing, right? Like they basically say, you know, she was created special or something like that and will survive, basically.
It's very alluded to of like,
Yeah.
oh, like Gaff says that thing of like, it's a shame she has to die, but don't we all? And then Harrison Ford says
What a
something
jerk.
about like, but luckily he extended her warranty.
Does he just,
And she can live as long
does
as.
he just say, shut up,
wanted
Gaff,
to.
you jerk?
Mm.
What a jerk.
And
Rachel's
Amazon
4 years?
Prime screwed me over.
Yeah, you had a bad time. So is Rachel one of the Nexus 6 or whatever, the 4 years ones? Is that
It is, but-
established?
Well, yes, but it is established that she's Nexus 6 because that's why he goes there to give her the Voight Camp test because they want to make sure it will work on those replicants so they can identify the other ones, which he never gives another one of those tests to. He just fights them all straight away. But
Just shoots up. Yeah.
yes, she is, but apparently she didn't have that 4-year thing because she gave birth to a baby. But anyway,
And because she didn't realize she was a replicant, so maybe it was a different thing that they were just going to have her be oblivious
she
that she
was
was a replicant.
special.
She was special.
Yeah, maybe she wasn't actually one of those replicants and she was just who's the boss in the first one? The
Late,
company? No, what's the
Wayland.
company called? Wayland Yutani. No, that's Alien.
It's not Wayland Yutani. Tyrell.
Tyrell. So yeah, maybe Tyrell was just lying about that too. Like he's a liar. He's a known proven liar. So maybe she was something like a.
Maybe she was a
7.
human.
Maybe that. Oh,
All the replicants are like, oh
No,
my god, she gave birth.
Blade Runner. He sees the serial number on the bones.
They could have just
You can't do that on yourself, okay? You think Deckard was just like, that's with him. He drills it in. My question
Years
is,
from now, they're going to trip out about this.
that's how I get out of Las Vegas. Someone comes looking for me. Why? So, do we know what Calantha is, and why does Deckard have this group of friends who are helping him?
So that's where Sapper Morton's from as well.
So they say like
He was a military person from.
he was a medic who, it's like they fought on Calantha, and there's an allusions to like, some bloody battle, some crazy war that happened there. But that's obviously where they all met. But I'm like, what's that deal there? Why? I don't know.
We're going to get that in the next one. As long as
They saw
2049
a
did well at the
miracle.
box office.
Yeah. All right, my other question is, why does Love cry when she's killing Robin Wright? Explain that one, atheists. Yeah.
Why does love do anything?
Because she was made by Neander Wallace to exterminate all life.
It was love, Murph. It was all. That's the meaning.
Confusing sci-fis, but that's
Oh, whoops.
All right, we are so far off baseline, it's not even funny. Any final points you'd like to make about Blade Runner?
I'm kind of sad that we're not going to get another one.
But we are getting the TV series. That is a direct continuation.
But it's an anime, isn't it?
No, it's live action.
Okay. But it's not
So Blade
Denis.
Runner-
It's not Denis.
No, that's the thing. It doesn't have the same creative team, so I'm cautious about that. But no, so
But I
it's a
am
miniseries,
in the
live action
world.
miniseries. Yeah, and it is a direct continuation, so like it will follow onwards. Which
Okay, if it's direct continuation 2049, I'm keen on that. But I don't know, like watching this made me be like, oh, now I want to play Cyberpunk. Even I was like, I want to just be in this world.
I've had that itch for a little while too, actually. I should
Yeah.
scratch it. Yeah.
Apparently, it's fixed now. So.
I started listening to the Deus Ex Human Revolution soundtrack again. So close to it.
Again, the score is so good. Like the music in these movies, especially the second one. Like the music's really, really good.
Yeah.
My boy Hans Zimmer
loves his horns. Even in this, he still finds ways to put his blaring horns in.
All right, let's rank them. For me, it's 2049 and then the original.
Yeah,
absolutely. 2049 is 5-star for me. Like I love 2049.
Don't know if I'd say 5 stars, but very high still.
Yeah, I thought I was going to come in here and say my piece about the original Blade Runner and be shunned. I'm glad. I'm glad I'm with my people.
That comes later. That comes when we post this video.
True.
You are with your replicants, man. For the next 4 years, we're together.
All right. Thanks for joining us for Blade Runner. Next fortnight, we are, another kind of dystopian set of movies. We're going to do the Bridget Jones quadrilogy. They made 4 of these damn things. So, get ready for Valentine's Day.
Get your missus to watch it with you. Like, watch the podcast, watch the movies with her, and then listen to our thoughts.
Why are you assuming only men listen to this? Maybe grab your husbands.
Get your boyfriends, get your husbands to watch it too.
Yeah.
Yes. Your mums, your dads, everybody.
Find your special person.
I'm an ally. I'm an ally out there.
Exactly.
All right.
Get your allies.
Thanks for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. We will catch you next fortnight. This podcast was brought to you by The Taste of Iron and A God Grotesque, written by one Conan Clark. Check it out on Amazon.
Is Arthur a replicant? We don't know.
We don't know. He is a force for revenge.
Let's read and find out.
Give us a rating on Spotify. Tell your mum about us. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.